Yeah, so my name is Kudakwashe. I am a designer based in Harare, and I'm going to be giving you my talk titled Finding Relevance and Remaining Valuable as You Grow Your Career in Design. So, this is a brief about me from the start of my career to till today. So, I discovered design by accident. I was a student on attachment in the marketing department, and they came a task where they wanted someone to design a newsletter that they were going to share to partners in the Americas and also in Europe. I was attached to the Zimbabwe Tourism Agency, so that was my first stint at learning design. I did that first newsletter using PowerPoint, and I think I pushed it to things you probably shouldn't do in PowerPoint, but at the time, that was the only design tool that I knew. So from there, that sparked like a lot of interest in me and, preparing marketing materials and being able to, and communicating ideas. So the desire for design was birthed in me during that period. From there, I started off in advertising. When I was done with school with my first degree, I I looked for jobs in the advertising industry because I wanted to learn to grow because I didn't have any other design experience. So I was looking at where can I learn the most and build a design career from. So advertising agencies were the go-to for me. I was lucky enough to get a job within a month or a couple of weeks of applying actually, without having like a design background. But I'll share a little bit about that as we proceed. From advertising, I tried entrepreneurship. We started off a startup with my friends, and we found another company that wanted to invest in us, and also us working for their company, so that we can get some salaries because they had a lot more funding than we did. From there, I took on a role for a global consultancy remotely. I was doing product design. I did a lot of presentations, and I also did a lot of data visualization work. From there, I tried entrepreneurship again. This time it left me bruises and I walked away. And then right now, after that, I started off a role with a GovTech startup where I am working as a cross-functional IC or designer within the team. So that's been my journey so far in design. So I've put together a couple of lessons that I've learned from the things that haven't worked well for me and the things that I could have done better, and also the things that I think have worked well for me that others can also learn from. I haven't had, I mean, disclaimer, I haven't had the perfect design career, but there are some things that I believe, you can maybe take one or two pointers that can apply to you and help you in your career as well. So the first lesson is that vulnerability can open doors, especially at the start of your career. So when I started off in design, I had a very basic portfolio. These are some of my portfolio pieces that I had, again, made in PowerPoint. And I didn't know like a lot of things about contrast, layouts. I was just, hacking things together and just seeing what looked good. However, what got me my first opportunity was I was honest and vulnerable. I came across a contact list from a website that had all the leaders of the top advertising agencies in Zim. So I had this opportunity to send out my application to the decision makers at ad agencies. I told them, the things that hadn't gone well in my career at the time. I told them I didn't have a design background. I didn't go to school for design, but I liked it and I wanted to build a career in this space. At the time, I was sort of applying, to become a copywriter and also doing design. So I communicated that to them, and they saw how vulnerable I was. And that allowed me to get, I think I got around 5 interviews. And I'd applied like I applied in July. I got these interviews and started off at my new role in August. So it was very fast and it worked. So the takeaways here are sometimes it can be okay to share your story openly, communicate to them where you're coming from. Are you self-taught? Are you transitioning from another path? Why have you chosen this path and why can you be a good candidate for their company? It's also, you should also know that people, connect with authenticity. On the other side of, the recruitment table are fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters. So when you communicate your story beyond the CV, beyond your portfolio, that can allow you for them to give you room to be able to tell your story more. Obviously, you will need to demonstrate that you can learn, master the tools and master the fundamentals of design and do the work. So that's the first lesson from my career. The second lesson is do your best and work well with others. So at my second company, when I did that entrepreneurship stint, one of the people that we were working with who was the PM, she was a Harvard graduate and was based out of Zim. When she left, she went on to join this global consultancy. And I think she was there for maybe a year or so. And when a designer role popped up, she recommended me. And I applied, went through the interviews, and I got the job. So what I learned from that experience was this was a global consultancy. They could hire anyone. They had the budget to hire anyone. I wasn't particularly special. However, I think the way that I worked with her, the way I would show up, I think it made her have the confidence enough to recommend me to be able to, be considered for this role. So as you start off your careers, or if you already are at a job right now, your reputation is built daily through the way you work with people, through the way you do your daily stand-ups when you're given an assignment, no matter how small, you're building your reputation and the people that you're working with today or that you will work with. You do not know who's going to open the next door for you when you now need to level up. And the second thing is that for most of us, we're going to be applying for jobs on job boards. However, what I've seen in the workplace happening is that sometimes recommendations are also considered. So sometimes when you're within a company, when there's a new role, the people that are currently at the company are asked, guys, who do we know or who do you know would be a good fit, for this role? So your colleagues, the people that you get to work with, even if you even if you're students, right, the people that you're learning with, they can be the people that get to recommend you, for jobs and for roles and for opportunities as you grow in your career. So you should treat every role as a stepping stone because you never know, it can lead and it should lead to the next role that you take. Um, yeah, and then the next piece is that is around feedback. Um, I'm sure this is not new to you guys. Feedback is part of the work. Um, However, it is not always delivered in a kind manner. Some feedback can be delivered in a harsh manner, in such a way you start to question, am I really a designer? Am I really valuable at this company? Is this still about the work, or these guys or this person is now coming at me like as an individual? So I just want to communicate and encourage you guys that, take every piece of feedback, whether it has been delivered in a kind manner, whether it has been delivered in a harsh manner, take it objectively, right? Try to remove the emotions from, how the feedback has been delivered and look at what's not working. Why have they said what they've said? In some cases, it can just be an emotional reaction. However, do your best as a designer to see, okay, this is not working because maybe the formatting is off, the balance is off, whatever the case may be. Try to, discern with your design eye and try to come up with a better solution for it. Trust me, in the end, you will be better off for it because in a way, like design is iterative. It's never done. There's always room for improvement. So yeah, feedback is a way for you to continually sharpen your skills, for you to continually look at, okay, this is the version that I've done, the draft that I've done. How can I make it better? Where is it missing the mark, and how can I get it, you know, um, to be the right standard that it can be. So feedback isn't an attack; it's free coaching if you choose to see it that way. Um, and then another point is you sometimes you have to be flexible to meet momentary needs. Um, um, yeah. So the first point here is sometimes you have to say yes to tasks outside your job description. You need to have the flexibility to build new skills and exposure others may not get. And oftentimes leadership notices the candidates or the interns, the junior, designers who often step in when there is need. Um, I'll illustrate this with this graphic. As you can see, Xano and Google Slides are bigger than the traditional design tools that we normally are trained to use on our day-to-day basis. I've been in a season in my career where I had to use, Google Slides and Xano a lot more than Figma and then the Adobe Creative Cloud. However, what I learned is that sometimes, for example, when I used to do like a lot of presentation for leadership or for client workshops or for sales enablement documents, you get to learn about the strategy of the company. You get to learn what the concerns on our customers are. You get to learn what the leadership is trying to build, is trying to run away from, in a way that gives you exposure into what the company or where the company is headed. And if you're a clever designer, you can start to see, okay, the company is headed towards this direction and we're trying to move towards this, these areas that we've been focusing on. You can start to align yourself, your skills, and even the courses that you then choose to take. You start to align yourself based on the needs that you're seeing that you wouldn't otherwise see unless if you had to work on these presentations. If you're trying to step into, more technical roles, maybe you want to get into backend development, maybe you want to be a design engineer, when you're given the roles to work with the database, to make edits there, to upload content there, that can give you exposure into the technical side. You start to figure out, okay, maybe I may not like the technical side as much as I thought I would, but you've done so without having to switch roles, without having to apply for a new role, only for you to find out that you won't like it. Or in hindsight, you can actually figure out that, oh man, I actually can do, some of these back end development tasks. I can actually do some of these, front end dev tasks. And you start, to mold yourself and to learn, these skills, these platforms. So sometimes, you may be given tasks that, are not aligned with what you're normally used to. However, look at it as an opportunity to figure out, what new skills can you learn. Use it as an opportunity to figure out, how can this allow me to learn more about the company and the problems that you're solving and the customers that you're solving for. Um, yeah, and that allows you to figure out, how you can best prepare yourself for opportunities ahead. And then another lesson is you've got to stack complementary skills. So I know when you start off, we want to be designers. However, what I've learned, especially in our markets, right? In some cases, you have to wear a lot more hats than you are used to, or than what the JD initially says, right? So it's important to figure out, okay, that you're a graphic designer, you're a UX designer. What else can you stack on top of that? Maybe you like animation or maybe you like interaction design. So maybe stacking some animation skills can help you become a better interaction designer. Or if you like the web, learning these no code tools or learning some, front end technologies can help you become a designer that can not only on the design process, the UX design process, but also, the front end dev part or the marketing website. That way, you get to be more valuable at the company that you're working for new roles that you might be looking into. How this played out in my career, when I got that remote role at the global consultancy, the thing that made me stood out was I knew Webflow. I had done some web designs, and apparently that company, their company website was built in Webflow, and some of the client projects that they were doing, they were using Webflow as a tool. It wasn't originally in the JD, but as we got through the interview process, it's something that popped up, and they did communicate that this is something that we find valuable and will actually make you a more favorable candidate. However, I'm not saying learn Webflow. You need to figure out, what appeals to you the most and stack complementary skills along the areas that you would like your career to grow towards and build towards. So a wider skill set increases your value and creates opportunities others cannot access. Um, and then another pointer is around mentorship. I know we all want mentorship. I also want mentorship. Um, However, formal mentorship is rare, so you don't necessarily have to wait for it. However, if you have opportunities to get a mentor, go for it. However, as I've seen personally, it's not always all the time you get to have a mentor, or you might be assigned or get a mentor, but then life gets in the way. They don't show up, for sessions, and you sort of left stuck. What has worked for me is learning from talks, learning from podcasts, learning from thought leaders within the spaces that I want to grow in. And drawing inspiration and lessons from observing from afar, the way other people that have gone before you or other people that are working in the same industry, but probably in different markets. There are people that already are sharing their journey already. You can always learn from them. For me, I have really benefited from these five channels on YouTube: Dive Club, interviews, product designers, design engineers, design founders that are shaping the world of product and US design at a very high level. People that have raised millions and billions of dollars that have generated like a lot of money through design. So for me, it really helps me to understand, what design can do for a company, and how big or how far you can take your design career, right? And there's obviously tools, even I think we all know Figma. I think most of us know Webflow. They now do these, or they have been doing these conferences, like yearly conferences, where a lot of people get to do talks. They're similar to what we're doing now, but a lot more speakers and a lot more diverse topics, so you can really get to learn more about how people are solving problems in the real world from some of these conversations, right? And there's also The Future by Crystal and Company, and then also High Resolution, that was run by a guy called Jed Orondu. These are free and available on YouTube. I've just shared these with you guys so that you can just, when you have time, go through them, and you can find out that you may not necessarily need a mentor that you speak to directly, but you can learn, from observing and learning from what others have done and how others have addressed challenges and grown their design careers with the material that they have shared already online. Yeah, so almost coming to a close now. The other lesson that's important for you to learn is you have to study the business case for the company that you get to work for and the company that you want to work for. It's really easy to lose sight of the why behind the work that you're doing. Um, um, and you mustn't do that. You need to understand, why are we building this website? Why are we building these features, right? You need to understand the struggles that the customers have, not just the design tools. Why do they need the platform that you're building, right? What are their struggles, beyond just the platform, right? And in doing so, you have to align yourself with the business goals, and that makes it easy for you to not just be, a task doer. I will say this, as you start off in your career, the work might not be a lot because you're still a junior. You're just maybe making changes, doing light work. And as you grow, build experience, you get busier, you get more responsibilities. It's so easy for you to get stuck in just being a pixel pusher and just, oh, we've just made another website, just made another landing page, or just made another UI design, just made another flyer. Um, when you do that, the work can just become a bit more monotonous. Even growth might, start to look a bit dim because you cannot see, where you're going, where you're headed. So it's always important to step back to understand, why are we building what we're building? What are the concerns that our customers have that they are looking for us, to help solve them? What are our competitors doing? Why are they winning? Why are they not winning? When you start to understand the business case, even the conversations that you get to have with your managers, with your clients, they start to change. You start to become more of a strategic designer and not just a designer that's only good at using the design tools. So this is very important. Yeah, whenever you can, and if you have access to some of the materials, if it's already documented, the strategy docs, etc., spend time to understand, where the business is going, and the customer pain points beyond just the design requirements. And lastly, I will say that you need to have faith. Creative careers are not very linear, as you've seen, and that about me piece. They're not very linear, so expect detours. um, Clarity usually comes after consistent effort, not before. Like this is true with everything. If you look at the first version of the iPhone, the first version of the Mac, the first version of some of our favorite websites, right? Or even in this case, the BMW M series lineup. If you look at where they started and what the current version is, they've refined their design language. They've refined, the engine. They've refined the look. They've refined everything about the car. And like with, and likewise in your careers, when you start off, you may not know 5 years from, 5 years is too far. A year from now, 2 years from now, you may not know, where you're going to be, how much experience you have, what you will be capable of. However, through consistent effort, you will often look back and say, okay, now I've seen that. Okay, I used to do ABC tasks and they've led me to this point in my career where I can now do these things, where I can now be responsible for these kinds of projects, for this kind of complexity. However, when you're starting out, it may not be as clear, but consistent effort will, bring clarity over time. So trust the process, keep moving and adjust along the way. Um, adjustment is key. For me, when I started off doing product design, I think Adobe XD was sort of the key tool then. I think it has died down now, and we've had to switch to Figma alongside with everyone else. I think some of you started off in Figma, but I remember a time where we used to do, designs in XD or even Photoshop earlier, right? However, adjustment and adapting to the times and to the tools of the days is really important, and it helps you to remain relevant in your career. So yeah, that's everything that I had, guys, for my talk. I hope you managed to pick out one or two things that you can apply in your career or that you can learn from, to not make the mistakes that I made, or that you could have made, but you not had someone's story along these lines. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Kudakwashe, for such an insightful presentation. Right now, I'll open the floor to everyone to ask questions. Please feel free to unmute your mic and just quickly ask the question. That was an insightful presentation. Yes, you can go on.
Kudakwashe, you said that you were burnt a bit by your entrepreneurial adventures. Sounds a lot like my journey too. I'm really hoping that you're not giving up on entrepreneurship. I'm wondering if you have anything in the pipeline or any big dreams that you're planning to take up in the future to perhaps launch a business or apply your skills in a different setting.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I haven't pushed it back. Definitely, I still want to be a business owner long term. I still want to build a tech company. However, for now, because I've also been, reinvesting in my education and I needed a lot more stability, I've been sticking more to this, IC role, a role at a company. However, within the coming year or two, I really want to, bounce back into entrepreneurship and build something. Yeah. But nothing is in the pipeline yet. But I know I will build a tech company of some sort, soon.
I'll be watching with much interest.
Sure.
Yeah. Just a comment on what you just said. It's not easy to balance education, entrepreneurship, and working at the same time. And it's hard to know which one to prioritize first. But I've come to realize that the more we educate ourselves, we start by educating, and then you can move on to entrepreneurship, especially if the funds allow. So that was a quick comment. Thank you very much.
Yeah, true. And it also depends also with like, as I've said, like design careers or careers in general, sometimes they're not linear. I started off just on the job. I hadn't gone to school for design, right? But if you're someone that is, maybe started off with the courses, I understand it's more probably most of the people here. Of course, you can, take more risks because already you have that foundation already. But if you're someone that has started off in the workplace, you sort of have to go back to, build that foundation, so that you can do bigger and better things in the future. Yeah, but definitely all things are possible and not giving up is key.
I want to just echo something that you said that really resonated with me. You mentioned not to resist doing tasks that aren't 100% aligned with your role. Early in my career, I was pushed to a more technical position where I had to configure and build and style SharePoint sites, which was not what I saw myself doing, but it opened up a whole new world. It opened up so many opportunities. And most importantly, I made connections and a lot of friends in the industry that later on opened up a lot of doors for me too. So it not only helps to have a perspective of your colleagues and what the rest of the process is like after you hand over the design, but like you said, it really just opens up doors for you. So that was an important one for me.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. However, at the time, as you're saying, it may look like you're wasting time, or you're now being pushed off to a different tangent and it can be, because it's tricky. I think there are scenarios where you need to say no to certain things when you know, okay, this will probably, do more harm than good for me. But in most cases, especially in our career, you've been given a technical task. In most cases, it will help you, because either way, what you design is going to be implemented by technical folks anyway, and your understanding of the technical side, it will help. So I would like to think that also for designers, doing these non-traditional tasks, in a way, it actually helps you to become a more well-rounded and more strategic designer at the end of the day, because you get to understand a lot more about what the company is doing and what's important for them.
100%. If you can think of it as gaming, that might be a side quest. And on the side quest, you get a lot of gold and armor and everything that you need to fight the big boss at the end.
Exactly.
So embrace the side quests.
All right. Any more questions, guys, from me?
Hi. on my side, I just wanted to add on to one other important note you mentioned is work well with people. Even if it's a 2-week project, even if it's a 1-day project, even if it's a 6-month project, those same people will call you, will remember you when something else comes up. As you mentioned, you worked with the lady for a year, and then later on she left. But when a position opened up wherever she was, she remembered, I know someone who fits into this role and stuff like that. So it's good to always make sure you have that sort of relationship with people, that sort of network, where even when people call you up, you should also be reliable, and not drop the ball. I just wanted to add that.
Exactly. And also on that, because as you're saying, like when people call you, you should be reliable and not drop the ball. But there's some cases where you may not have, the capacity. You want to help, but you don't have the capacity. I've definitely been at fault with this. Sometimes it's okay to say, you know what, I want to help you, but I don't have the capacity right now. That preserves the relationship a lot more than saying yes and then failing to deliver. Because at the end of the day, another opportunity will come up. They want to come back to you again, right? It'll be difficult for them to come back to you back when they came back to you, you said yes, but then you didn't deliver. However, if you try your best to keep your word, whether it be a no or if it's a yes, I think that, will do good for you. It's really important that you try your best to become as reliable as possible, and it can mean saying no sometimes so that you can say yes in the future.
Oh, yes, thank you very much, Kuda. That was so insightful. And everyone who participated, guys, please feel free to unmute your mic and comment if you want to comment and ask questions if you have any questions.